Paul Cohen, founder and CEO of Attention Comms, talks to host Doug Simon on PR's Top Pros Talk.
Well, obviously, attention is a critical part of communications. And can you give us a little insight into your journey? You've worked key roles at large companies, more boutique firms. Now you've got your own agency.
So we're seeing, especially in the US, these both the giant mergers, but then all these opportunities for boutiques and really smart people running smart businesses that can be nimble and take advantage of the radically changing nature of communications and how we shape reputation, how we create attention and the right kind of attention. I mean, obviously, our name was very mindfully chosen to
Right.
be purpose built for today, but it's really a matter of the opportunity for nimbleness and smarts when you've got a real clear understanding of the type of work you want to do.
Yeah, and you've mentioned purpose-driven and values-driven organizations as the ones you want to work with. The perception of what a values-based organization is can be different depending on where you sit on the political spectrum and others. So, how are you handling and pursuing, working with these value-oriented organizations?
A few years ago, every company on the planet described itself as a purpose-driven organization. It just became wallpaper and meaningless. Given the backlash to the sort of alphabet soup of purpose, DEI and ESG and all these things that companies were really claiming a mantle towards. Now that there's a backlash, the organizations that truly believe in purpose as a driver for their business, it's once again a differentiator, and it's once again something that's going to make a difference because now in 2025, companies that claim organizations that claim to be purpose driven and can demonstrate it are really doing so because they believe in it. Because if you don't believe in it, you don't need to. It's frankly more of a burden if you're not really taking it seriously. So we work with organizations that view this as a privilege, not a burden, and really see their purpose through.
And is that one of the key trends you're seeing, the challenge of trying to maintain what used to be considered traditional purpose, if you look at it from the perspective of actually trying to do something good, as opposed to be able to throw some initials out there that don't really fit with your business? Is that a trend? And how do you advise companies in this space?
Ultimately it comes down to authenticity and to my old boss at Ketchum used to talk about closing the say do gap, and that's still the same. And so organizations that claim one thing and act in a different way, that gap is just going to be where their reputations go to die. So we in PR, especially in 2025, need to help our clients really reduce that say do gap to zero. And we want to work with clients that say that purpose is so important, but they need to prove that really on a daily basis.
Are you seeing other challenges in terms of brands? Like, is it limited to one space? Used to think of purpose like, oh, great, you're involved in clean energy, you're supporting that. Is purpose taking a much broader role now?
I think it has because frankly, there are so many areas for an organization to make a positive difference. But it can't just be an alphabet soup. It can't just be throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks. Um, Stakeholders, consumers, investors, they smell inauthenticity, from a mile away. And so it's got to be really clear and coherent. And so that's really the approach we take with communications is really understanding the whole and making sure that the story you're telling is wholly credible and is really demonstrable, and that's really what we set out to do.
Yeah, a big change also is how people are consuming content. The pendulum seems to swing back and forth in so many ways. I know now we're benefiting that, earned media is now perceived as being important for GEO instead of search, as people looking for generative engine optimization. So old is new, new is old. How are you finding navigating these different challenges of where people are consuming content and not just consuming, interacting with it?
ultimately, that's why we named the organization Attention Comms, because attention isn't just a metric. It's the fundamental substance that shapes politics, society, and culture today. Ezra Klein had a line where he said, "Media is something you get booked on. Attention is something you attract." And I think too many in our industry still treat attention as something outside their control, something the media or influencers decide for you. And I think that's really a dangerous misconception. And we really, it's our role as communicators to ensure that our clients are earning meaningful and proper attention, irrespective of channel. And it's really a matter of ensuring that all the channels work in concert to tell this attention grabbing story on behalf of our clients.
Yeah. Now, you've previously had leadership roles within organizations, and when we're recording this, you're about 1 month in to your new company. Are you learning some different kinds of leadership lessons now that you're in this new role, and what might they be?
Ultimately comes down to the same verities, right? It's values, it's trust, it's authenticity. And either these can be buzzwords or they can be North Stars. And if they're just buzzwords, they're worthless. But if they're truly our North Stars in terms of how we think, how we operate, how we communicate, that makes a difference. And people see that. Your staff sees that. Your clients see that. I'll say another lesson for me from a leadership standpoint is uh, trusting my network and really thinking about my my circle of network differently. And throughout the negotiation process and just kind of as I was looking for counsel, I reached out to people who have been colleagues throughout my career. And some
Right.
people that weren't really close friends. I've gone a year without speaking to them. But, they were the ones who really, rallied to me and provided, really valued trusting counsel and kind of forming my own kitchen cabinet. Really was a great addition to kind of my leadership thinking to have that at my disposal.
Yeah, I love how there's so much hype about how things and change. But when I started my company 39 years ago, I was flying solo, and I number of friends, one in particular, really smart guy, and I would just bounce ideas off him all the time. And he was an entrepreneur himself on that. So it is great how you can get people to be sounding boards beyond who don't necessarily have the direct connection to the business. That can be super helpful in time. Any final thoughts you'd like to share as we wrap up this conversation?
The main thing is, how do we create genuine change in our world? And our role as communicators can really help with that by cutting through the noise, telling authentic stories, really working with organizations that are making a lasting impact and ensuring that important stories become signal and not noise. And that's a really in today's age when there's so much negativity, so much competing blah blah, the ability to cut through that noise and tell those compelling stories that drive change is as important a calling as I can think of.
Yeah, well, your signal to noise ratio is pretty high. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Appreciate that.